The following featured presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
Welcome to Resilient Squadron, where we share and discuss the adventures, challenges, and representation of disabled and chronically ill fans across the Star Wars universe.
Hey everyone, welcome to Resilient Squadron. I'm Jack.
And I'm Greg.
So Greg, I know you got your second vaccine last week. Want to tell everybody how that went for you?
Yeah, sure. It's a weird feeling because it was actually a bit rough for me, but also really rewarding. I feel better than I have in a long time just because a big weight's been lifted off my shoulders. And yeah, that's even with all the weird side effects I experienced.
Right, I've heard similar stories. I actually get my second shot later this week.
Great.
And I think, the good thing is, like you were saying, people are having a lot of side effects, but I think the overall outcome is worth it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's nothing to shy you away from getting it. But I think, going through these side effects is worth being immune and hopefully us getting back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going to have a different experience with it, but they're all better than COVID, and they're all worth it for the end result.
Right.
And that actually relates a lot to our topic this month, which is about addressing accommodations when you're planning an event, as well as some of the necessary sacrifices we're having to make right now with those events due to COVID.
Exactly. All right.
And in general, we're going through a time right now where Star Wars fans are seeing parks reopening, a few gatherings here and there, and more events getting scheduled.
Right.
In fact, we recently saw an announcement about the dates for Celebration 2022 getting moved up, and the organizers also included detailed information about the COVID guidelines they'll be enforcing to ensure the safety of their guests, such as requiring masks, encouraging social distancing, avoiding handshakes, and things like that. And one of those requirements is that they won't be allowing, as of right now, costume masks or helmets of any kind, because they're requiring the face masks and they have to be able to see those. And it's really unfortunate, but it's one of those things that I hope people adjust to and adapt and accept without too much difficulty because, as we said, some of these things are just necessary sacrifices to be able to have these events in the first place.
Exactly.
So let's get into talking more about those challenges and accommodations in general with this month's guest. Now it's time for our mission briefing, our monthly deep dive into a specific topic related to disability in the Star Wars fandom or universe.
So this month we are talking to our special guest, Jon Engel, who is the regional manager of New Dimension Comics here in Western Pennsylvania. New Dimension Comics has 6 locations in the Pittsburgh area, and Jon is also the promoter of Rivers ComiCon, which is an annual comic book convention here in Western Pennsylvania. So let's welcome Jon Engel to the show. And how you doing, Jon?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your role in New Dimension Comics, and more so with Rivers ComiCon?
Well, I was born on a rainy Monday morning in October. No, really, I was. It was 8:15 in the morning on October 5th. But my mom always loved to tell me how much it was raining. Anyway, I grew up in the middle of the state. I then went to a state school, Clarion University, where I got a music business degree. That degree got me into retail. Retail brought me to Pittsburgh. My wife and I met in college. We both moved to Pittsburgh at the same time in 2007. We've been down here since. I started shopping at New Dimension Comics around that time while working at KB Toys. So my background, is even crazier in toys.
Awesome.
And then, so my nerddom is crazy because it's toys, comics, music, it's all one big giant ball of art to me. So, it's a lot of fun. But then, I started working at our Old Century 3 location, which, no longer exists because the mall shut down. But then I worked my way up to manager at our Mills location, and now I'm the regional manager. I've been doing that for about 6 years. And then with Three Rivers ComiCon, that's a kind of a fun story. So my boss, Todd, who owns the company, he and we were driving home one day from having wings, where we normally have our business meeting. I think we were driving home from somewhere in Elwood back to Cranberry, and we started talking about the old Pittsburgh Comic-Con, and because it had sold to Wizard World, and then it moved downtown, and because it changed so much of what it was doing, and it kind of it wasn't the same event. And we said, we kind of want to do something a little more traditional, focus it on comics, artists, creators, and not do the TV movie stuff that a lot of other cons do. We may have a little bit of that, but our general rule for that right now, at least, has got to be, it has to be something related to Pittsburgh.
And you want to focus on the art too.
Right. Yeah, because that's what we deal in.
Right, exactly, right.
So we kind of set in motion this movement, and our tagline is putting the comics back in Comic-Con. And it's heavy vendor focused, heavy creator focused, and even our panels we've been morphing them slowly into more of like, not just a panel where you're going to go and hear somebody talk about fun stories. While that's awesome, and I love hearing stories from dudes like Ron Friends, because he has got some really awesome stories, we are really trying to morph them into more of like a masterclass style event, very similar to like what you see at like Heroes Con. Like we've had some really great panels though. We've had like mental health and suicide prevention in the nerd community.
Oh, great.
We had empowering, like a women's focused, like empowering women and women in comics. We do a bunch that focus on Kickstarters. We really try to make it more than just, like I said, storytelling panels. Like those are fun, but they're also sort of boring. Like if you're going to pay to go to this thing and you're going to take time off the floor to go to a panel, you should learn something, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Right. So that's actually our goal this month. In this episode, we're focusing on what goes into providing accommodations for disabled fans and fans with chronic conditions at events, any of which might affect whether or not they can even attend an event such as yours, or how much they'll be able to enjoy it. We know you put a lot of thought and effort into this aspect of your convention, and we're hoping we can help educate anyone who might be planning an event of their own, large or small.
If we can help make an event better, that helps not only the disabled community, that helps you guys too. Because, it makes you look good, you'll get more customers, you'll make more money, and then everybody's happy.
Yep.
So one of the things, again, Greg and I have spoken about this from more so my involvement as an outsider and somewhat of an insider, but we wanted to get a promoter's perspective on it. So one of the questions is, like, when you guys are planning an event such as Three Rivers ComiCon or the Comics and Collectibles shows, I guess, what's the discussion, if there is one, concerning accommodations for guests with certain needs?
I think mostly it just comes down to so there are laws obviously in the U.S. and in the state of Pennsylvania that we live in that we have to abide by anyway. We have to abide by them in the store, so you have to have a walkway a certain width. You have to have handicap accessible, like certain things. Like if it's 2 floors, you have to have an elevator of some sort. So it's mostly twofold, because for let's just use your example, Jack, because you're in a wheelchair, right? So it works out twofold, because if we can go, all right, this guy in a wheelchair can make it up this ramp. That means a vendor can wheel his cart up this ramp. You know what I mean? So it becomes an extra entrance and exit for load in and load out, let alone for anyone with disabilities to come through. We also like to, and I know that some other shows don't do this as well, but we actually like to have a wider aisle when it comes to layout, because we found that it's not just like if you have the aisle too close, you have too many people. Like if they're trying to sit there and actually look at stuff, there's sometimes too many people coming behind them that, and I'm trying. Okay, it's called the butt brush effect. This is a legitimate thing. It's in a book called Why We Sell. You should read it if you're ever interested in some really crazy, like reasons why people buy things and like the mental steps they go through. It's called the butt brush effect. So the butt brush effect is when you're standing there looking at something, and somebody comes up behind you and you can actually feel them rub across your butt. They're that close, right? So, what sucks for people who are in wheelchairs is that becomes like a wider problem than someone who can walk and turn sideways, because now it's not just like an awkward butt brush. It's no, man, this is how I got to get through, right?
And the other thing too, don't take you off, sorry, but like
it's cool.
And also too, like yes, I am literally 6'1", but in a chair, I'm barely 5 foot. Right. So it's hard to see. It's not hard to see me, but I mean, again, if you're at a busy con, with so many distractions and so much going on,
you get a couple thousand people in there, and it's going to be like, where'd Jack go? Oh, crap.
Exactly. And so I do get bumped into.
Right.
What I absolutely loved about Rivers ComiCon in particular is there's enough room in the aisle for people to stand and look at the tables on the left side, people to look at the tables on the right side, and for through traffic. So you have people, taking pictures with cosplayers.
I was going to say that also benefits the cosplayers.
Just gathering and congregating in the middle. Yeah, you don't have to. Excuse me, please, can I get through? There's so much room, and that's just. I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, we try to make them, I think, 10 feet, like at minimum 8, but we try to keep it 10. We've just found that that's a very good width. And I actually picked that up from going to shows that had a much bigger attendance. Like New York, it's usually 10. Baltimore, it's usually 10. C2E2, things like that. And that was some of the things, like, when I go to shows and vend, because I'm a promoter, I look at these weird things that no one else looks at, right? Like no random attendee is going to look at that and be like, man, that aisle is so wide. Like, but look at how they easily get through with this cosplayer taking pictures and people can still go around. It really works out in that perspective to make sure that, and it works out for not just like for people with wheelchairs, it works out for everybody.
Exactly.
And it's a benefit for everyone. And it also helps the traffic flow better. So more people are seeing more things. So it's kind of it's a win-win. Like anything you can do to help someone with a disability through the show is going to help people without disabilities through the show anyway. So why not do it? Make the aisle a little wider, like make sure that you aren't like leaving random in the aisles. Like that's like that to me is a giant pet peeve when like you have like when vendors just like let stuff come out into the aisleway and like you trip on stuff as you take a corner, or in your case, just run it over,
Get out of the way.
Just annihilate it. Move your stuff. Like, I'm waiting for the day you show up with like tank treads. That's going to be awesome.
Exactly.
That is something that we look at is most very specifically the aisleways were things that we discussed with that. And you were actually the person we thought of. I'm like, if Jack vents at this, we need to be able to make sure that he can get through stuff and not have to wait on people who don't give a shit because they're idiots.
Right.
And people that are just shopping.
Right.
You know, and I wanted to make sure that was a thing. I wanted to make sure that in the panel room there was space for people with wheelchairs to just park at the end of rows, like kind of like in theaters where you see handicap accessible spots. We wanted to make sure that there was no weird multi-tier stuff. We try to keep everything on the same level. Basically, like even our panels were on the same level. There was no like stage to it.
I'm glad you didn't though, because like I ran into that situation one time. Actually, well, a friend of mine did.
Okay.
We were at a particular show and they had guests. They had celebrity guests, and they were on these little makeshift platforms. Okay. And there was only like 2 or 3 steps to get onto them. But if you're in a wheelchair, 1 step doesn't cut it. You can't do it. And so the celebrity I wanted to meet, she was real cool, and she actually came down the steps and met me. But my friends who wanted to meet this one celebrity, he decided he didn't want to come down. Now, yes, you could definitely blame him for part of it because, you know, he's being a jerk and for whatever reason, he decided not to come down.
There's definitely both. There's definitely multiple possibilities, but
at the same time, had they had everything on ground level, it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place.
Or at least have a ramp. If you're going to have a platform, have a ramp.
And then Greg and I talked about a couple of shows earlier where I guess Peter Mayhew was a guest celebrity at a show.
Yeah.
And no one told him he was coming in a chair.
It was him and David Prowse also.
Oh, and David Prowse,
wow.
Yeah. And so they had to figure out, oh crap, how are we going to get David Prowse and Peter Mayhew were sort of kind of big news. I think I've heard of them.
Yeah.
How are we going to get them on stage? And, you know, and they, I mean, they did it, but, you know, it's one of those things. I think it would be nice if you thought of that thing ahead of time in the planning process.
It said a lot that even major, well-known celebrities, but also their featured guests were not, you know, prepared for, not accommodated.
Yeah, it also might be a thing where, and this is going to sound really terrible, where maybe the promoter didn't know.
Right.
But
yeah, and that's where education matters.
The idea would be that everyone should prepare for that possibility, right?
That's one thing too. Is like, yeah, obviously, like, okay, for instance, let's say you, John, overlook something. Well, it's kind of hard to blame you because, I mean, you're not in a wheelchair. So how are you supposed to know all of, say, my needs? Now, a lot of it's common sense, obviously, but unless you've been in my shoes or a person with a sight
in your wheels
impairment or a hearing impairment, how are you really supposed to know all their needs? So it is easy to overlook things once in a while. And you can't, I forgive a lot of stuff because in very few cases, it's a matter of like discrimination or not caring. I mean, that's very, I've run into that, but it's so far and few between.
Yeah. I mean, we've, I guess maybe we're very blessed with knowing basically the idea of we know some customers in the store with certain disabilities, and they are most likely going to come to the show. What? And they are most likely going to come to the show. So if I can get them, if they're coming to the show, how do I make it so that if, I don't know, maybe Jack has like a group of people who are all going to show up in wheelchairs that he's just like, come on, nerds on wheels, let's go. And we've had guests who are like legally blind. We have guests who have to have therapy animals. So, you know, and we have guests who have had crutches. We've had guests who have wheelchairs. We have guests with one arm. I mean, you know, we've had a little bit of everything, and because we're were already aware of that you normally, or those people that want to be vendors or artists or guests at our show usually are very upfront about it. Like I remember the first time you applied for the show to vend, you were like, "Hey man, just so you know, like I need this. I have this question. And it, you know, because you knew me before that, I think it was a little easier to ask those questions. But those were all things, everything that you had said in that email of questions, I had already been thinking about because I saw your application come through. And like I said, I'm like, well, if I got one, I'm probably going to have another one at some point. So, you know, and there, I've seen guests, you know, like maybe it's not the guest, but maybe it's their wife or husband or handler, you know. Like I remember going to Baltimore one year and there's Walt Simonson and his wife Wheezy is in a chair because she broke her leg and she's in a wheelchair half the time and she's on a scooter the other. So, you know, how do you deal with that? Because, and I had to think about that. I was like, man, how do they deal with it? Because it's down a floor from the street level. And I was like, oh yeah, there's like 3 elevators over there. So that's obviously how that worked. So that was like, so it's kind of a thing where like our first couple of year shows, we did them in old department stores that we converted ourselves. So part of that was cool because a lot of those stores are already set up for ADA stuff. Like there's already some kind of ramp. There's already an elevator if they need it. There's usually handicap accessible restrooms because that's something that just has to happen. Right. So it kind of worked out well for us that way, for those shows. And then, you know, last year we were all excited because we were going to go down to the DLC, which is the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. And then COVID happened. Act of God part of our contract kicked in. Contract gets canceled. Shoot. Now what? So we postponed to this year. Now we're doing everything outside and it's in a parking lot. So it's all flat, right?
Well, it's Pittsburgh, so you never know.
That is true. I mean, it's flat-ish. You know, so it's you know, but there's also like area transportation buses that will provide handicap transportation. So we don't really need to usually worry about that. Some people ask about it, but as far as I understand it, in this area, and I don't know if it's like that everywhere in the U.S., but pretty much like if you need that ride, they will schedule it and make it work for you.
Plus, we do have access transportation here in Pittsburgh area. That's even a nice thing that we have. Yeah.
I think what you're saying about the, like, I guess the facilities you use, like that's partly where I think people might need to take those kind of things into account in choosing the facility that they want to use. So they're not just picking some location where it doesn't have those you know, things built in accessibility.
I mean, I would probably, and I really hope I never have to like eat crow on this, but I really don't ever want to have to do my show in a place that doesn't have a hard floor. Because like I've been to shows at like sporting centers where it's like on a soccer field, like the AstroTurf. Some of them are nice because they're like a little harder of a turf, and some of them are not. And you like, and a dude, like a regular guy like me is sinking in there and I'm like wobbling on the floor. And I'm like, I'd be like, man, if Jack came to the show, he'd be stuck. Like he'd just sink. And then I'm like, how do you even do that? Do you have like just two guys push and help you through? Like, do we just get you a sled and pull you? Like,
can we do that?
I don't know what's going, like, I mean, we can. I mean, that's up to you, man. I mean, like I used to watch my friends like, put on rollerblades and hang on the back of cars and trucks and ride around parking lots and, you know, whatever. We could do that too if you wanted. Totally be like that scene with Stan Lee in the truck with Mjolnir on the back. We can try that.
I did that on my friend's on back of his bike one time in college. I held on to his bike chain. Nice. I held on to his bike chain while he pulled me. Oh, and nice. Let's just say it didn't end very well.
I was going to say, what did you top speed at? But,
before or after I fell out of my chair.
All joking aside, though, like, I just don't like most people are, if they're going to run a convention, if they're going to run an event, most places nowadays, when you rent those places, they are all mosely ADA compliant. The biggest problem that you're going to see is layout.
Yes.
Because even if you go to like New York Comic-Con, the Javits Center has ramps on it, and then there's like 3 or 4 elevators throughout the building. So, and then the floors are super wide, like they're, I think, 12 feet aisles, even though they are completely shoulder to shoulder, front to back. It is nuts. Like if you've ever driven in New York, when you go into the show, that's what it's like walking through the show. Is like driving in New York.
Wow.
So
No, I'm speaking of layout. I've definitely seen the gamut of good and bad layout. Like I've been to certain shows where the tables are packed like sardines. I've actually had a hard time talk to my table mates on the side of me and said, "Hey, would you guys mind sliding your table down just a little bit?" And most of the time it's been really cool, but some of them they've had, like, they've needed that space for their stuff.
Yeah, most of our vendor spaces are 10 by 10 squares. So if you buy like a vendor thing, like you're going to be selling a ton of stuff. They're more expensive, and it's usually a 10 by 10 square, and you can either get an inline or a corner, depending on what you want your layout to be. But then for our artist alley, and like, I guess we'll call them like special guest type things, like higher end creators that we bring in. Our artist alley is set up as, it's basically an 8 by 6 block, right? It's 8 feet wide, 6 feet deep. And there's a 6-foot table in there. Then you can use that space however you want, but you can't go past it. And we try to do that, because it breaks so people can see the next person, and they're not just thinking it's all one big line of people. And it's easier for people to focus on that person, or maybe all of a sudden somebody finds something and all of a sudden there's a big line. There's a little bit more space to get around. And there's enough room behind them, that they can put a banner, they can put a small rack if they wanted. And they're not on top of the person behind them either. But yeah, I definitely have been to shows where people are side by side for like 6 or 7 tables, and then no one knew the dude in the wheelchair was coming, so they put him in the middle, and it's like, what do you do? Like, I don't understand why that promoter wouldn't be like, oh crap, I'm sorry, and just switch him with someone on the end. Like, that's the easiest accommodation. So, or if they know ahead of time, why they don't plan for that person to be on an end. Hell, man, we do all this big space, and we still plan for, if anyone has wheelchairs, try to put them on an end, so it's easier, you know?
And that's the one thing that, too, I noticed was, like, sometimes, like you guys have always been accommodating. Like, so even, like, the one time, and I don't know if we'll include this or not, because I don't want people hitting you up all the time, but, like, the one time I was doing the show by myself, and I just took all my stuff to NDC Cranberry, and then you transferred it over to my table, and then vice versa. So I wouldn't have to worry about it. But I've been to shows too where I said, hey, you know what, I'm coming by myself. And then also too, with particular shows, they'll require everybody to buy a wristband. Even if they're just like helping me get literally from the entrance to my table.
Yeah.
And I'd say, why am I going to pay all that money for somebody to help me for like 2 minutes? And I get, like, their show was really huge, so they didn't really have the manpower to help me.
When it comes to help accommodating people, I think we will always be as helpful as we can without, where we start feeling like we're being taken advantage of, we will stop. So far, that hasn't happened. But, I mean, we've done, like, what a publisher goes, hey, I'm flying in from New York. I'm just going to send a pallet. Can I just mail it to a store? We're going to say absolutely, you know, because, or to the convention center, or to wherever the event is, right? And that's a very big practice in bigger shows, is like, you know, like when Marvel shows up in New York, they don't just like get in it, throw it in a truck and drive it down the street, right? Like they ship it, they palletize it, ship it, and it shows up on a truck, and then they just drop it in their booth, and then they put it all together and they take the pallet away and then they bring the pallet back later. But for like, I also know your setup and I know it's not a ton of stuff. Like if you would have gotten a 10 by 10 and been like, I need you to put these 40 long boxes in the store and then take them down there for me. Right. I'd have been like, Jack, I think you need to hire somebody,
buddy. We're doing that this year. And you'll get 2 tables too. So, but no, I agree. Like I think,
but that's kind of the thing. And to go on the point of the people to help, I guess most shows, at least that I've vended, almost every show I've vended at, if you get a booth, you get 2 passes. Okay. Now, sometimes the problem with those 2 passes are, for cases like yours, is maybe that one person who helps you set up cannot be the same person that helps you tear down. Now, I get that. I get that problem. I would probably just give the person who can help me set up that one, and then just encourage the person who's going to help me tear down to just buy a ticket for that day and come and hang out. Because normally that's what's going to happen anyway.
I've done that.
Or if you know another vendor, or artist that is friendly with you,
I've done that too.
They can help you out. Yeah, I mean, Jesse used to help me out all the time.
Another thing too, going back to the case where I was denied help, I think it was definitely a case, because I've heard that particular promoter has been taken advantage of.
So, I can't confirm that.
Right. Well, now that's what I've heard. So, I think, and I can't confirm or deny it either, but I think what you just said yourself, it is definitely a possibility where a promoter's generosity was taken advantage of. So then they had to enforce stricter rules because somebody had to spoil it for everybody. That could have been the case.
Like, or it's, because I know some vendors, it's like, I haven't seen this a lot, but I know some vendors do 1 person per table, right? And then you have to, anyone else past that, it's usually like a discounted rate for that extra person to be working the booth. But they have to be working the booth. They have to be there on a certain day. Like I said, every show's different. And I don't know, it could be like we said, it could be a vendor or a promoter got taken advantage of. It could be maybe they normally would have a bigger staff, but maybe they can't this year. Or maybe they just don't have the staff to do it anyway. Because normally in the past we've done volunteer staff. This year we're doing volunteer staff because we only need them for like 2 hours to help make sure everybody gets where they're going, and then they're done. Like, they don't need to stay all day. They can if they want, but they don't need to. But normally when we do our big weekends, we do pay our staff. So we expect them to do what I need them to do, which also includes stuff like, hey, this guy asked to go to the bathroom. I need to watch his booth.
That's one thing I love that you guys do. And it's going back to the whole thing of helping everybody actually in turn helps your disabled guests. Because by having your staff come to our tables on a regular basis saying, hey man, do you need some food? Do you need some water? Do you need to go up and stretch? Do you need to go to the bathroom? I'll watch your table, or
go smoke, whatever you need to do.
And I always stay at my table. Well, I'll fully admit that I don't. But
no, I've definitely seen you in the green room every once in a while, grabbing something to eat.
But that's a good advantage. I mean, to have that as a disabled person or a chronically ill person, or again somebody who's just had chemo the day before, or had dialysis the day before, is, let's say you're disabled and the green room is clear on the other side of the building. Well, having one of your staff come say, hey, can I go get something? It's such a huge, huge relief. And just such a wonderful amenity that isn't always provided. And again, I don't think certain shows don't provide it because they don't want to. It's just, again, a staffing problem.
I was just going to say, like,
whatever resources.
It may also be the venue too. Because like some venues, like the good part about what we did the first couple years when we were literally taking a room, cleaning it out, and making it something workable. Was, we made a green room for all the vendors and staff. So we treated absolutely all of them 100% the same way. Like, you didn't have to have your name on a list to get in there. You just had to have the vendor badge to get in, or the vendor wristband to get in there. And it was nothing crazy though. It was just like bottled water, a couple cans of different kinds of soda or pop, and then like some snacks type stuff, like, crackers and cheese or a Snickers bar, And like I said, it could be the venue too, because like some venues, like when we were at Century 3, we did it in Old Mall. We could have food trucks out front. Waterfront said no. Sorry guys, no food trucks.
Right.
When we were talking to the David L. Lawrence, they were also like, no food trucks. Or you can't have food vendors unless they buy out whatever the contract is for for their space from the contract of the food vendor that they have as an actual concession people. So there's a give and take in there. And I think some people do better with it than others. So it's, again, just everybody's different. And there's no promoter that wants the show to be
exactly
bad.
Right.
How's that?
Right.
And that's the thing.
And that's like I said, that we always take it easy on people again, because we know there are a lot of logistics that happen. And plus too, again, I know you can absolutely attest to this. You're not going to think of every single scenario. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. But I think as long as you can minimize all those scenarios, you've done your job.
And that's also like we've talked a bit about that's kind of our purpose here, is education, and use this as a way, at least one way of like spreading these ideas and getting people to think about them and consider the different needs and options to accommodate people. And it's also a big part of where, like, you have a good example here of having a guest who's you're familiar with, like Jack, who you can think, okay, what is Jack going to need? And you can actually talk to him and include him in that process. I think that's always an important thing. I think people should try to do, is to include people as much as you can. If you have a blind guest who comes regularly, to talk to them and find out what do you need, what works for you usually, and what doesn't work for you when you go to these kind of things,
Right. We really, I guess we get another great opportunity because we have 6 stores year round. Right. And I go to all 6 stores. So if somebody's like, hey, I went to the show, or hey, I wanted to thank you because you did a good job, or hey, I was wondering if you can get this guest, and blah, blah, blah. Those are kind of the guys where I kind of go, okay, well, hey, like, what did you like? What did you not like? We tried this year. Like, what do you think about doing this? And I like to bounce ideas off those people, because the show is not always for me. I mean, obviously it is for me, but the end goal is I'm happy when the vendors are happy, the artists are happy, and the attendees are happy. Yeah. And how do I get the most people happy at the same time? And another thing that we try to do is we try to have like a sitting area where people can take a break. Right. Cause like my wife,
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. So for instance, like my wife has MS. So if it gets too hot, she's going to need to sit down. So boom, there's a spot. That's probably one of the reasons why she doesn't work on the staff. But if somebody said, like, and I know some other vendors who have this similar kind of stuff, or they have anxiety issues, so they need to be near a door, or they need to be on an end, or whatever. And I'm cool. Like, I'm a kind of promoter that I'm going to work with you as much as I possibly can. If you're really late to the game, though, I don't know if I'll do everything I can, but I can't promise the moon, so.
And I guess the big thing too is, and what we're big, proponents of is communication. And that's what I think one of the big goals is with the disabled community is, again, communication, and not only teaching, but learning from each other. That's the way we're all going to work together.
Right.
Yeah. I think also I want to touch on the fact that you've mentioned it a few times, but there's an actual term for this concept of, it's kind of like universal design.
The ADA compliance, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
that when you build something or create something geared around disabled needs or like extreme needs, that it benefits everybody. And there's a term called the curb cut effect that came out of the fact that when they started adding curb cuts to curbs on crosswalks and stuff for wheelchairs, back when those first started, whatever it was, 50, 60 years ago, they found it, it benefited everybody. It benefited, people who had trouble walking, they had people, mothers with strollers, people dragging their luggage, delivery people, like everybody started, people on bikes, all these people would benefit from having these curb cuts that they've become standard everywhere, and just nobody gives it a second thought.
Unicyclists.
Yeah, exactly. And
we're coming to unicycle
exactly.
one year.
Nobody
oh my god, that'd be awesome.
Nobody ever thinks of unicyclists. And it's a similar thing with like captions. Is another good example people use a lot. Where captions are great for people who can't hear, but also everybody uses captions all the time now. For when you're in a loud space, you want to, or somebody's sleeping next to you, or some people just cognitively process things better by having the captions on screen.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different benefits that all these people benefit from, even whether they have any impairment or disability or not.
Or voice command,
voice commands,
like Siri or Alexa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's huge. Like I use that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly when I'm driving, because obviously I don't want to have to sit there and try to scroll. But I will tell my phone to call a lot of people while I'm driving.
But I especially like when you kind of took it to the next level beyond that. That I think is especially important for promoters, and hopefully will get appeal to them, which is the idea that some of these ideas also benefit you from a sales and promotional perspective of making creating an environment that's better for people to get around and spend money,
right,
and enjoy the event or whatever it is that they need to do.
And as a retailer, I mean that's a thing too. Like you always hear say eye level, right? Like things should be at eye level.
Yeah.
Eye level.
What is eye level?
Eye level is actually it's closer to like the 5 foot mark, because it's upper for kids and it's slightly lower for like your average male who's like around 5'10" to 6 foot. And if they're standing back at it, that's what they're going to see. And the way advertising works is you read from top left to bottom right at like a slow slope, and then all of a sudden it drops off hard. So your point that you want to see is actually like on a 4 foot rack, let's say that's 7 feet tall. Your actual sweet spot is about 5 feet up, slightly to the right of, like if it were a human, you'd be looking at their heart, right? That's the sweet spot. So if you look at any kind of poster or magazine or anything, a lot of the times that's where the hit point is.
Is it pretty much the rule of thirds, kind
Something
of?
to reference. Yeah, kind of like, so like this Green Lantern, right? That you're not actually looking at the title. You're looking at this part because it's not the top, and it's here. It's close enough to the center because you're going to read like this. So you're actually, that's why she's over here, because she's the focused lantern, not the guardian. So that's actually why you read like that. That's why we focus stuff like that. But the 5 foot mark is still high enough where people with disabilities and wheelchairs can still see it. And it's pretty much their eye level, right? Like the 4'6" to 5 foot mark is where it is. And that's why you see a lot of racks that aren't over 4 feet, because they'll just put stuff on the top shelf. And that's the eye level for most people, like that 4 foot to 5 foot spot.
Yeah. So you've mentioned here and there, like some of the things you're doing this year that's different due to COVID. Can you talk a little bit about both how this pandemic has affected y'all, having to postpone last year and getting going this year, and then just what are some of these things you're having to do this year to adjust for everything that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, let me talk about the stores a little bit in that too.
Sure.
Because that was a big thing. So, last March, I remember calling the guys from Bad Idea, the comic book publisher, and being like, you guys forgot us on the first wave, blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, I'm getting ready to walk into the Bloodshot premiere, and I'm like, okay, cool, call me tomorrow. And then that next morning, the world shut down.
Right.
And it's like, that's my last memory of pre-shutdown. Oh crap, because at that point we had heard rumors of National Guard coming in and full martial lockdown.
Right.
So when it came to everything being shut down, we were very hopeful that it would only be the 2 weeks. Of course, everyone was hoping that, but some people just didn't understand that they should have probably have just stayed inside for 2 weeks. So we had to adjust for a period of time. There were only 4 of us employed at the show, at the entire company. We laid 80 people off, something like that.
Wow.
And it was me running 5 stores out of our Elwood City store. I had everybody's subscriber boxes there.
Oh, okay.
The 1 week of Diamond box new comics came in, I processed it, and then I called everybody and said, I'm going to mail you your stuff if you want it. There's nothing coming for 2 months. What do you like? Now's the time to buy your stuff. And luckily, a lot of our guys were very cool about doing that. They would do that. We started offering curbside for those who wanted to do it. And then when the restrictions came to where we could open, it's obviously master mandated in all of our stores, or some kind of face shield. Like you can have the plastic face shield, but master mandated. And we're still cleaning all the time. And we had to limit how many people could come in the store. We also had to cancel in-store gaming. Currently, Pokemon, you can't play Pokemon in-store at all.
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast things, you can't do that at all either. Like, at all. You just can't. Like Magic, nope. D&D, nope. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon, nope. Nothing. So, I mean, the nice part about that is in a lot of the stores it helped to be able to socially distance a little better, because not only were we making sure that the customer stays safe, but the staff stays safe.
Yeah.
Because we've only been able to hire back part of the company, and we're doing minimal hours. Like we're doing most stores are 11 to 6 or 11 to 7 or 12 to 7, something like that, or 12 to 6. Like they're not open 11-hour days like we used to be. But like I said, and we were totally fine with people who canceled their subscriptions too. Because there were guys that had pull boxes that were 4 inches deep, and we were like, we can cancel it if you just want to buy some of it. If you don't want to buy any of it, we are totally understanding. No one knows where this is going to be. Let us know. But most people at least canceled and bought, or just bought it all with a stimulus, or bought it in chunks during that 2 months period. And there really aren't anybody that's backed up too hard now.
I can definitely relate to. I'm quite even now with the way things are. I'm quite backed up at my local shop. I need to get down there, and I need stimulus. I need refund. I need something to get down there and catch up.
I mean, I'm personally backed up at home here with all the stuff I bought. I probably have, I bet it's a good 8 or 10 inches tall stack of stuff that I'm just backed up on. So that's kind of what we had to go with there. And then when it came to the convention, it sucked because we were on this huge momentum, because we were we're moving the show into the downtown convention center in Pittsburgh, and boom, it's going to be here. It's going to be huge. It's going to be awesome. We have this giant room, and we were booking some cool guests to come in that had never been to Pittsburgh or hadn't been there in decades. And then all of a sudden it was world shut down. Everything's on pause. So we're like, okay, now what? And we waited, and we kind of went, what are our options? And eventually it got to the point where it was, there is no way that we're going to be able to have this in this calendar year. The convention center got turned into, at one point it was an extra triage COVID center where people were being taken care of. At one point, after that had trimmed down to where the hospitals were now not overloaded, it became I believe it became like the courthouse for Allegheny County, because they could space people out, and they were doing court hearings and stuff in there because everybody could be so spaced out. So it was very interesting. They were using it for other things like that were more important than conventions.
Arguably, yeah.
Well, where you're not going to have thousands of people trying to jam in a room and be all over each other.
Yeah.
And then, the other side of that is that talking to a lot of artists and vendors, they were not really keen on having to shake hands and get pictures with people and be very close with them. So we were like, okay, well, Act of God kicked in, contract gets voided. Let's talk about this again when the world gets back on track. So that's like, we're in, like, I can't confirm where we're going to be in 2022 yet because we don't have a contract anywhere yet. We're currently shopping that and doing that kind of stuff. So, eventually we'll be able to announce that. But, so when fast forward to January or December, right? When the first vaccines were emergency use authorized, right? So December, first vaccines are authorized. January, they start coming out. Then we had an election changeover, and the new administration decided this is like, we're going to create the plan for rollout. We're going to do 100 million people in 100 days. They did 130 so far. And it's just now around the 100 days. Like, it's not even 100 days. It's 130 million in. So a third of the nation has been vaccinated, which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And at that point Pennsylvania was nuts because restrictions were tightened, then loosened, then tightened again, then loosened again. And now they're nowhere worse than they're probably the loosest they've been yet. Cause I think restaurants are at 50%. Everywhere else is 75%. Yeah. Entertainment venues are 25%. And, outside venues, like, or outside events, like, it's weird. But basically, if you're doing an outside event in PA, as long as you have people that are wearing masks and at least attempting social distancing, it's pretty much okay. No matter the size, right? A lot of states now are 100% open, but you still got to wear a mask to do whatever you want, which is totally fine. I mean, whatever you got to do to, if that's what you got to do to have a business open, put the freaking mask on and help that dude out, man. Go buy something from him. That's the way I look at it. It's not like anybody's asking me to, sign over my house to come in their building.
Right.
So then we decided, okay, things are interestingly open enough that maybe we could do something smaller. Let's try it outside because ventilation is good. The world was looking like it's moving in the right direction. And we said, okay, how can we do this? And who should we focus on? Because we knew that a lot of bigger names were not going to do the handshakes and the photos and stuff right now. So we were like, let's focus on local artists and vendors, and give the guys that, the first people we gave crack at were the guys that had signed up for our 2021 show that had got postponed. And a lot of them rolled over their payment to whenever we get back doing things right. So those guys all got first crack at space. So we worked out a deal with the waterfront. And we're going to be in what they call the overflow lot. And we're getting...
I was curious about that.
Yeah. So if you look at the map of the waterfront, it's between, the old Steak and Shake and the, I believe it's the First Commonwealth Bank. There's like a weird extra parking lot space where, you know that they're just waiting for somebody to build a McDonald's or something in there. Well, not a McDonald's because that's already there. Like, so you need like a Wendy's, right? Dairy Queen, please. So we're going to be in there. They're getting us 6 20 by 40. No. 20 by 40. I think it's 20 by 40 tents. So we can effectively put 8 by 8 spaces as a rectangle, like, so 4 on each side back to back. And that's enough space that if you're masked up, you're still like, if you're an artist, you're socially distanced to the dude beside you. If you're a vendor, you may have 2 spaces and you're going to be walking in between there, but you're still back to back with someone. And the guys beside you aren't going to be as tight. And then we offered people that, because we ran out of that very quickly, we said, if you want to bring your own 10 by 10 tent, you can pay and table, you can just pay the same table fee, but we'll let you park your car right beside it so you can have extra space. I mean, you're getting a much bigger space for the same price as you would if we were to provide the table and tent. But now you're paying, right. So you're paying a little more, but you're getting a ton more space. Because that 10 by 10, you can fit 3 6-foot tables in there easily and then still be backed up to your car and have a ton more room. And those will be kind of spaced out around the thing. So that's kind of what we worked out with everybody. And I said to Todd, I was like, look, man, I just want to get, like, this is for these guys. Like we're not going to make a lot on it. We're going to make whatever people pay to get the spaces. And I'm like, I just want people to remember who we are. So when we go to that big show the next year, we can really make it stick. Let's do free admission. And he was like, he's like, all right, but I want to do an early bird thing because there's a couple guys that'll do that. And I said, and that vendors are going to take forever to load in and not be loaded in at the right time. And I said, okay, that makes sense. I said, I said, I will submit to a 2-hour maximum per day on that. So from 10 to noon, like, vendors can start setting up at 7 a.m. I don't really see a lot of them coming at 7. I see a lot of them showing up around 8, maybe 9. But from noon or 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 noon, you can pay $5, get a wristband, and go shop those vendors for 2 hours before anybody else gets to walk over in that space at noon. And that's the part that's the most rough, is how am I going to try? Like, my thing is, how am I going to police around this empty lot? So I think what I'm going to do is, I have a bunch of cosplay groups that are showing up, like 3 Rivers cosplay, my Star Trek group I'm in, and the 501st are all going to be there, and the Steel City Ghostbusters. And I'm probably just going to go, can you guys just do me a favor and just not let anybody without a wristband walk in if I don't get enough volunteers to do it?
Ideally, you could just get as many stormtroopers as you can and use the the Disneyland approach, and
just make a perimeter. That'd be awesome,
great perimeter.
It'd be like being at Celebration, right? It looked like Jack's background right now. It'd be great.
Exactly.
But that's kind of the plan, and we really, like I said, we wanted to focus on, like, vendors and artists that are local that maybe, haven't been able to do anything, and this is something they need to pay their bills. Because, like, a lot of the bigger name artist guys, I guarantee they're good on their commission list, that they can just work from home and this isn't going to be a big problem or as much of a problem for them. Some maybe they are. I mean, but if they're hurting, I don't know. But I think most of the people that need this are the vendors and artists that we got. And I'm still getting today. I got 3 more applications, and we're still taking them. Eventually I'm going to have to figure out where the cutoff is.
As long as there's more parking lot.
right? Another cool thing that I did not announce to anybody, so you guys can have this. So last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, I get an email, and it says it's from Disney Plus, and I'm like, okay, like this is not my normal Disney Plus subscription email. What is this? Because it said like convention something, and I open it up, and they're like, hey, we heard good buzz about your show. We'd like to do something, like we'd like to partner with you guys for something. And I was like, hell yeah. Yeah, sure. I was like, if this is a joke, I'm going to be really mad. Oh, that's awesome. So I emailed them back. We emailed a little bit, and once they were like, well, is it inside? Is it out? Like, what do you do for your show? I explained it. And it's right beside our waterfront store, right? Which is huge. So we will have, they're going to be sending us a Loki trailer that will be on loop in the store all show weekend.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
I am so pumped to
awesome.
partner with them like that. And I was just like, man, this is awesome. Like, it's like that. Like, what email do you want to see kick through your email when you're a promoter?
Right.
Do you want to see Disney? You want to see Marvel? You want to see DC? You want to see Image? Those are like your four bigs right there, right? Like your big four. And that's one of the ones that I got to see, or I guess like Lucasfilms would be your big five, round out the five.
Right.
But it's always
somebody
good.
would say Bad Batch, but I'll take Loki. Totally take Loki.
Bad Batch would be great. But I think Loki kicks beginning of June, right? And that's why, because the show's like the 22nd and 23rd of May, so they want to help promote it. I don't really think they really need to have promotion for it more than they already do, because I know there are very few people that I know that aren't watching WandaVision or Mandalorian or Falcon Winter Soldier.
Considering how they've done so far with these shows, I don't think they need a lot of help, but it seems like a very good gesture.
The help they need is getting people to subscribe to the service. That's what they need.
Yes.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we're all excited about that one. So that'll probably actually be announced on our social media probably sometime next week.
Cool.
Cool deal.
And I guess one last thing, why don't you let us know, I guess, when the show is, and give it a little promo.
All right, Three Rivers ComiCon Light 2021 will be May 22nd and 23rd at the Waterfront in Homestead, PA, on East Waterfront Drive, I think is what it is. And it's going to be in a parking lot. If you Google search New Dimension Comics Waterfront, it's going to be in the parking lot in front of it. Well, a little bit further away. It's like across the parking lot and then a side parking lot. But if you park in front of the store, you'll be able to see it that weekend for sure. You can get all your information at threeriverscomiccon.com, or you can check us out at 3 Rivers Comic Con, and any of our social medias. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, and we have the Facebooks. And then you can also check out our podcast, which is New Dimension Comics Presents the Toddcast, on Spotify. And you can also watch us live every Thursday at 7 on YouTube.
Cool. And we'll make sure to put all that in our show notes.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show and being a guest. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we just really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
No problem, man. Like, anytime.
All right. Yeah, thanks a lot.
No problem. Thanks.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us for this episode. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, be sure to check out Three Rivers Comic-Con.
Yeah, May 22nd and 23rd.
You'll find a link containing all the information about the convention in our show notes. And as always, we want to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're Resilient Squadron on Facebook and Instagram, and at Resilient Squad on Twitter. And we'd really appreciate if you leave us a rating and review on iTunes or your own podcast network of choice. That'll always really help us out. We're part of the Skywalking Network, where you can also find other great shows like Talking Apes, classic Marvel Star Wars comics, the Max Effects podcast, Neverland Clubhouse, and the flagship show Skywalking Through Neverland. You know, we always give a shout out to Mark Hamill at the end of our episodes in hopes he'll notice and come on the show. But we've decided he's just too big a star to hope to get him on a little podcast like ours. So we're going to focus on a Star Wars celebrity who's much more realistic to get. So, George Lucas, we've left you some voicemails. Please return our call so we can have you on the show.